All right, Shabbos, say good morning. Let us begin. So we are continuing in Mesillas Hashem today in Mesillas Yesharim. So today we are up to, Monday, the 4th of Kislev, November 28th. Again, in the Hebrew edition, page 73. And let us begin. So remember again, yesterday we began the really interesting discussion concerning gaiva, concerning arrogance. And the Ramchal trying to highlight to us that there are many different aspects of arrogance that often we fall prey to. See, he explains over here as follows. He's describing over here different levels of arrogance. There's a type of arrogance where a person can think in his heart, so there's one level of gaiva where a person feels that he is very deserving of praise, very deserving of honor, and therefore again that reflects in the way that he behaves. In other words, his behaviors themselves reflect this idea, this mindset that he feels entitled to a certain level of elevated behavior or elevated kavod. For example, b'kavod rav, a person conducts himself in general with a great amount of kavod. For example, ben belechto, ben b'shifto, ben b'kumo, b'diburo b'chol masov, the way he walks, the way he sits, the way he gets up, the way he talks, and with all of his actions. For example, lo yelech ela b'nachos gadla akevo b'tzad gedulo. When a person walks, he walks very slowly. Again, that slow gait representing the idea, you could feel free to mimic it, right? So it is the slow gait representing that, again, someone like me doesn't need to rush, right? The world will wait for me. There's no need for me to go ahead and rush. Lo yeshev ala prakton, when he sits down, he says, now prakton literally means like reclining. The idea is that when he sits down, it's always relaxed, right? So, someone like me should always be in a relaxed state. Lo yakum, when he gets up, ela ma'at kinachash. He only gets up very slowly, like a snake. So it's interesting. So what's funny is, you would see these behaviors, and one would think that they'd be more closely associated with laziness than they would be with gaiva. But the idea, if you think about it, is that a person's living life, or a person's conducting themselves in a way that essentially says, the world will wait for me. I'll get there when I'll get there, right? I'll sit down when I'm ready to sit down. I'll get up when I'm ready to get up. And the idea is that everything revolves around me. Lo yedabre makol, a person doesn't speak with everyone. Rather, he feels certain people are beneath him. And therefore, again, he will not talk with them. Elo nichbadei ha'am. I only speak with important people. V'gam b'neim lo yedabre elo ma'amorim kitzarim, and even then, I conduct myself in a way that I'm very limited with my words. Now, kema'amari hatrafim is something very interesting. So he says, literally again, like sorcerers. The idea with that, interestingly enough, is that just it's highlighting a certain limiting number of words. The idea is that a person is, now again, I both say, all of these things you think to yourself, limiting words, isn't that good, right? You're limiting your speech. Again, it's all done in an arrogant way. B'chol shar masov, and again, this is reflected in all of his other actions as well. B'tnu osav, in his movements, b'pu'ul osav, in his actions, b'ma'achalo b'mishtav, in the way he eats, the way he drinks, b'ma'bushav b'chol drachav, in his clothing, in all of his ways. Yisnai b'chvedus gadol, he acts slowly. Everything is done in slow motion. Kilu kol b'saro oferes b'chol atzamav even ochol, as if one's entire body is literally made of earth, right? All of his stones are bone. He just moves slowly. So I will say, so again, there could be slow movements as a form of laziness, and there could be slower movements as a form of saying the world waits for me. I rush for no one, the world waits for me. Okay, so say that's one level of gaiva. He's just describing different levels of arrogance. There's another form of arrogance. Sheyachshov shelafi shurai letihila v'rav hamalos tzarech sheyeh margis haaretz v'shakol yirashu mipanav. There's another form of arrogance, we both say, and this other form of arrogance ultimately again manifests itself in a flaring temper. a flaring temper, where a person thinks that it's his job. Margis ha'aretz means that he instills fear into the entire world. V'shakol yir'ashu mipanav, and literally again, everyone is shaking from him. So we'll say this stems from a feeling that everyone has to do what I want when I want. And if they don't, I'm literally going to put the fear of God in them because they're not moving or they're not doing in accordance with the way that I want. Kilo yeos shiaharsu b'nei adam l'daber imo u'levakish mimeno davar. Because ultimately, and again, he does not want anyone really talking with him or asking anything from him. V'myapilu la'alos elav. And ultimately, again, if they choose to go ahead and do something not in accordance with his will, he will let them have it. He'll let them have it. So we'll say, what this is, see, it's interesting. So in the previous level, it was almost like a certain level of slowness or laziness as a manifestation of gaiva, of arrogance. In this level, ultimately, again, what's happening over here is it's anger as a manifestation of arrogance. Do what I want, when I want, how I want, and if you don't, I'm going to get angry. I'm going to get, and not just like a little angry, not just a bit miffed, right? But I'm literally the world is going to shake from my anger. Why? Because things have to happen the way I want them and I need them to happen. And ultimately, again, if people don't do what I want, then again, I answer them nastily, with an angry face at all times and all moments. We'll say, again, it's interesting. So here, what's fascinating to see is what Ramchal is saying is a short fuse and constant anger. The problem often isn't kas. The problem isn't anger. The problem is gaiva. The problem is arrogance, is haughtiness. He goes on. Another example, or another level. Yesh acher. There's another level of gaiva. And what's that? Sheyachshul is interesting. Sheyachshul belibo. A person can think in his heart. Shekvar. Hu kol kach gadol umechubad ad shi efshar lekavod sheyisparish mimenu ve'ino tzarech lo klal. So I will say this is very interesting. Then there's another level of gaiva. The other level of gaiva is a person thinks that they are so great. Listen to this, to the point that it would be impossible for me not to be an honored individual. In other words, I've reached such a level that at the end of the day, of course, the level that I have, I'm never going to lose. They both say, when a person gets to this level of gaiva, therefore what? So I say to myself, I don't need all of the external trappings of honor. And I both say, so sometimes a person says, I don't need all of the external trappings of honor because they're humble. Sometimes a person says, I don't need all of the external trappings of honor. Why? Because they're actually uber arrogant. Right? In other words, those external trappings, they don't even do me justice. In other words, I'm so honored, and I'm on such a level that even, it's okay. What you're going to see what he's describing over Rabbi Osai is actually what we call false humility, which is the greatest sign of arrogance. He goes on, he says, Ulaharos hadav razeh. So let's listen to this. And to show that he's so honored that he does not need the displays of honor, what does he do? He engages in humble activities or humble behaviors. V'yafriz al midosav laharos shiflos gadol va'anava ad ein cheker. This is a person who's such a bal gaiva that he acts with such overwhelming humility. But the overwhelming humility is a false display of humility, and in fact represents an incredible display of gaiva. V'libo misnase bekirbo lemar. Ultimately, again, he's so arrogant that he says, Ani kolkach ram, v'kolkach nichbod. I'm so high, I'm so honored. Shekvar ini tzarech l'kavod. It sounds so interesting, right? I'm so honored and so important. I don't need the external displays. I know how important I am. Everyone knows how important I am. I don't need the external displays of honor. And ultimately, again, And we'll say, therefore, what does a person like this do? A person feels that he's so above any displays of honor that he goes ahead and acts in a humble way, but an exceedingly humble way. The problem, of course, is that the humility itself is not correct. The humility itself is not true. The humility by definition, is in and of itself a display. Is in and of itself a display of arrogance. Person pretends like he's being mevater, like he's just yielding, he's giving away all of this honor. Shekvarav hu etzli. So we'll stop over here for today. This is the end of today. So again, you just begin to see, we'll say, it's fascinating, first of all, just to see how sometimes behaviors that we mistake as other things, right? So something we could mistake as laziness could in fact be gaiva. Something we look at as someone having a very bad temper can in fact be gaiva. Sometimes even excessive humility could in and of itself be a display of gaiva. Again, I understand why this is here in the chapter of Nikios, because the whole point of Nikios is to go through the things that we have to purge from ourselves, but at the end of the day could be so profoundly systemic that we don't even know where. In other words, that can have so many tentacles and so many appendages, which is why we have to be so aware of the negative midas. So we'll stop over here for today. Shkoyach. You gotta stop in the right place, right?